The Mediterranean, tourist paradise. The Mediterranean, cradle of the Jewish people, today surrounded by cemeteries. In the midst of the tombs, children play. In the streets swarm thousands of underprivileged people. Is this the chosen race? More like a fallen race to whom all is forbidden, even hope. 1860. The Alliance Israélite Universelle, here mentioned in its oldest document, was chartered, the first organization dedicated to the resurrection of the Mediterranean Jew. 1862. The first school was created in Spanish Morocco. This was the beginning. Today, this movement encompasses much more than the shores of the Mediterranean. From the banks of the Atlantic to those of the Caspian, wherever Jewish children are threatened with ignorance and misery, the schools of the Alliance are there to aid them. Without these schools, the majority of these children would continue to stagnate in medieval ghettos of overpopulated cities and remote backward villages. It took work, hard work, to accomplish this. More work is still necessary. Fortunately, the Alliance receives assistance from varied sources. The French government, local governments, from the always generous American Jewry, represented by many large organizations, outstanding among them the JDC, whose concern for the Jewish children of the whole world never wavers. There is also the OSE, which furnishes medical care to children everywhere, particularly in the most backward and poverty-stricken areas. And finally, in the field itself, there are many who devote their time and labor unselfishly. The Alliance steadily pursues its self-imposed goal to give each Jewish child the basic education essential to success in the modern world. At the same time, religious instruction is not neglected. In Casablanca, the Hebrew Normal School, employing modern teaching methods, continues to train Hebrew instructors. These young men are destined for Alliance schools where they will teach Hebrew, a unifying link for Jews all over the world. Several professional or trade schools are available to graduates of the primary schools. These institutions teach the most modern techniques in metalwork, woodwork, fabrics, and leather. Some of these schools are operated jointly with the ORT to avoid duplication. For the girls, there are schools devoted to dressmaking. Agricultural training is also included in the program. Here, young people are instructed in the task which will fall to many of them in Israel. Special schools have been created for children suffering from eye diseases and for the deaf mutes. For all these projects and for all those which the Alliance plans to undertake, support is needed. Men and women are also needed. That's where I, Samuel Levy, came in. Toward the end of my course at the normal school, I received a call from the director. Sit down. You know that every year we are trying to start numerous schools, even in remote primitive villages. Would you like to be a part of a project like that? I never make men respond immediately. Think about it, but I think you should be warned. It will be difficult. You will go very far from here. Here where you're accustomed to live. You will be removed not only by miles, but by centuries from our civilization. And so it was. First, there was a matter of 600 miles on a bus, which kept heading into more and more isolated country. More isolated country. No service to the spot where I was going. I still had 15 miles to do on foot. Soon, even the dirt road gave out. But there was always the sun and the heat and the dust. Mission to a primeval world. It reminded me of the story of Genesis. The animals were made on the 5th day, and on the 6th, man. day.
Shalom. Shalom.
يمكن هو الهزان؟ שלום.
שלום.
סלדרני תתהרי.
خل تشوف.
واكب بالكاهل
حخام بن عمي.
سفتي وهاد ما يولاندو. سلام.
Shalom.
أنا هو المعلم جديد. This was my first contact with the new world I was going to help form. The chief rabbi spoke Hebrew, but the others a Hebrew-Arabic jargon. I wanted to open my school immediately. But there was one thing that was essential beforehand, the cooperation of the parents. I called all the fathers together in the synagogue. Women don't count for much in these places. I explained why I was there, to give their children a future.
عندك الحق. بدنا في حل حمير حبوا يكونوا بنادم. لا لا لا
ما تكون باستكشي أولادكم بس تداويهم من بعد نقلهم.
ما تردوش كلامه قبل ما تنصنطلوا. هذا كلام مليح. لازم ولادنا يتعلموا القراية ويتعلموا الكتابة الفرنسي.
I felt them giving way, so I added only خميمو مارسكم هبيوا فولكم بس ما يسوس بلاهيوس. Shalom Aleichem. Then I took them on, one by one. They received me well. They offered me the customary mint tea. And I had to drink a lot of it before I could overcome their doubts. They were prisoners of their way of life. A way of life that had helped them over centuries of misery, oppression, and humiliation. But today they needed something else, and I had to convince them of it.
إليشا بن أبويا عمر حلم التورا يلد لما خدومي يديو كتوبة إلنا عار حدش علم الدراري ديالنا الحرف دي فرنسا بالحق تهلفهم بس تزيدوا في الدين ديالنا.
The first step was won. Now I had to find a schoolhouse. That was easy with the chief rabbi's help. He showed me around almost all the houses. Most of them, like the house of my new friend the miller, were too small. Others could not easily be made over into classrooms. Finally, I found what I was looking for. It was spacious and easy to do over. It would need only a roof on the courtyard. But my head buzzed with other plans too. My enthusiasm seemed to transform the bare rooms before my eyes. There someday, an infirmary, a shower room, and there, perhaps a lunchroom. And the terrace. I'd find a good use for that too. A use even for that simple bit of scrap iron. There was no time to lose. I started reconstruction immediately. While the building was going on, I kept in close contact with my future pupils and their parents. Most of the villages were fairly clean and healthy, but others left much to be desired. Trachoma ravaged the eyes of many. Favus was the other principal curse of many of the children. My supplies were beginning to arrive. Among them, medicines. The little girls. Coeducation. I was expecting great opposition on that score, so the ease with which I won them over, both parents and children, was a happy surprise. The idea of sending girls to school had never even entered their heads before. It just had not been done in the history of the village. My villagers also had assimilated many Arab customs. They married their daughters off as early as possible, at 8, 9, or 10 years.
أنا نحب نزوز معك. نحب نطلق. نحب نمشي للسكويلة.
Fortunately, that situation arranged itself. Her husband was of school age, too. By the time I had settled all these problems, the school was ready. It was a fine night when I was at last able to enter my school, with the knowledge that the next day I would begin classes. my terrace, it seemed as though tomorrow would bring the dawn of a new age for this village, which I was beginning to love. The next morning, the whole town assembled at the school door.
Swina scatta, scatu, scatta, elulata hina, elabanetta hina, dina la lulata, elulata hina.
Not only did they have to learn to read and write and count, but also to sit. Many of them had never before used a chair or even a bench. You are going to learn to speak French and to read and write. When you've learned this, it will be like a key to many other things about which I will tell you later on. غادي نعلمكم تحضروا بالفرنسيس. Repeat after me. École.
École.
That's fine. Everyone now.
École. École. École.
At the end of an hour, I gave them a recreation period. But they didn't know what it was. They didn't know how to play. At the noon break that first day, I had a surprise waiting for them. I was surprised too. They were so proud of their heavy hand-me-down Western clothing, mostly from the American Council of Jewish Women. They wore them even though it was 120 degrees in the shade. Everyone was happy, even the young rabbi whom I had invited to hold his Hebrew classes in my new school. Shalom. راري التلموملة لعيفريت فهال فرانسيس. L'Ardoisette uzmemet skula duya umzena. Weeks, months went by. With problems and with progress. One day I came upon a boy writing his name on a wall, just like other children anywhere in the world. It made me feel that my teaching was really taking hold. Seemed to be taking an interest in learning.
Le nez. Les yeux. Les yeux. Les oreilles? Les oreilles.
My first practical victory was with my friend, the miller. I succeeded in persuading him to modernize his plant. In the morning, quite often, some children would arrive a half hour or even an hour before class. I myself was up early, generally with the sun. Come back when you've washed your hands.
All right, let's get ready. Shirts off. Come on, everybody, hurry up. All the boys. Hurry up. Let's go. Follow me.
They were like other children now, more alert, healthier. But the games and the sports gave me some trouble. Not with the children, of course, with the adults. They didn't understand. Lost time, they said. Yes, in spite of the progress, there were difficulties. With a few exceptions, the adults seemed to have little respect for me, or the school. Some of them showed their distrust openly. They spied on me constantly. One day I surprised a few of them raking through my garbage heap. They'd seen me eating omelets, and yet there were no eggshells. Black magic. Otherwise known as powdered eggs. Then, too, in their naivete and ignorance, they expected miracles. Like the father who complained that his educated son wasn't capable of helping him in his business affairs. This after only a few months of schooling.
Sit down. Amar David.
Present.
Ben Simon Suzanne.
Present.
Cohen Charles.
His father wants him no longer to go to school. His father wants him no longer to go to school. He will go to the rabbi.
Well, Aaron, what's wrong? Why didn't you come to school today? Come on, what's the matter?
There is no more soap at my house. It's too dear.
They're too poor. The rest I could fight against. their backwardness, their ways so different from ours. But poverty. Even the miller was beginning to abandon me. Spare parts are expensive. The teacher's manual doesn't cover that. It was too much. And on top of it, the heat, the loneliness, the distance from everything. Stuck here in the Middle Ages, I couldn't take it anymore.
What? What is it?
Hurry up, my father's dead. Scorpion.
He'll be all right now.
This comes for you. For me.
Well now, off you go. It's time for bed. Go.
Look at our hands. They are dirty no longer. Please, we want to go at school also. At night, when we return home from work, we too want to become real men.
Now I know, all together, we would win.